everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be doing my first book haul of 2019. So I'm going into the new year with a lot of books that I still need to haul, and there are so many that I had to split it up into multiple videos, so there are still some books on my shelves that I haven't even hauled yet, but I decided to focus on ARCs and some new releases that I'm very excited about for today's video. So I still have a lot of books to talk about. There's probably like 20 or so here, so without further ado, let's just get into it. So today's video does feature a paid promotion by Disney Book Group in honor of the recent release of Undying by Amie Kaufman and Meagan Spooner. Undying is the sequel to Unearthed by Amie Kaufman and Meagan Spooner, which was a really cool sci-fi techie story that honestly felt like I was reading a video game. Basically, the whole concept for it is that the Earth is dying, so they are trying to find a new planet where they can go and live out their days since Earth has very few days left. So they end up intercepting a message from a long extinct alien race that finally gives them hope that they can find somewhere else to live. So for someone as scholarly as Jules Addison, going to this new planet would mean that there's an opportunity to study and learn more about it. But on the flip side of things, scavenger Amelia Radcliffe could completely ruin that opportunity for her if she gets to loot that planet first. So the two of them are very opposing forces, but they end up having to come together and form this unlikely alliance in the face of danger. So throughout the course of the first novel, they're trying to get into this Undying temple, which will reveal all of the tech and just secret information that has been hidden by this extinct alien race. But their journey there, this is why I say it's like Temple Run, is because it's just wild. There are so many things happening, and it's just like you're in this crazy video game where you're just like, what is happening? I had a great time reading the first book. I thought it was so much fun. It was such a wild ride, so I'm highly anticipating finding out what's going to happen in this sequel. Like I mentioned, this is already out, so you can go and pick up a copy of it now. I will have a link down below for you guys. So speaking of sci-fis that I liked, really any sci-fi that I end up enjoying and really getting into is a welcome surprise for me, because it's just one of those genres that I struggle with. But on a whim, right before Christmas, I picked up Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This was actually sent to me in the December Fairy loot box, and I hadn't even known this book was a thing, didn't know it was coming out or anything, and then we got it in store and I was like, interesting, and then I kept on seeing such rave reviews for it, so I was like, there's something about it that is compelling me to want to pick it up, even though it was like 4 days before Christmas, and it's a pretty big book, so I didn't know if I would be able to finish it in time for when my sisters came and I just wouldn't be reading anymore. But I ended up flying through this book and thoroughly enjoying it. So this follows our main character Spensa, who's living on this planet that has constantly been at war with this other alien race, the Krell. So Spensa has spent her whole life dreaming of being a fighter pilot, which is essentially the highest rank that you can get in her community, and her father was a fighter pilot, but he ended up being disgraced when he turned against his community and became a traitor. So in order to try and achieve her dream, she faces a bunch of obstacles and has to try and defy all of the prejudices that everyone has already set against her. This was actually my first Brandon Sanderson novel, and I was so pleasantly surprised by it. It was such a great and fun story. I loved Spensa. It kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time, even though there was a lot of action, but there also wasn't a lot of action, so it was just a very interesting reading experience, and like I said, I liked it a lot. So because I enjoyed that book so much, I actually went and picked up Missborne by Brandon Sanderson, which I did own at one point in the UK copy, but it was a used copy, so I ended up unhauling that at some point, I believe, but the point is I went out and repurchased it. But this is a book I've heard nothing but great things about. It's a high fantasy novel, and it is pretty big. Like, the UK copy is very big, so I think that was kind of intimidating me, and I had tried to read it a couple of times, but I never got into it just because I wasn't in the right mindset. But I do want to give this a full chance, and hopefully I will end up enjoying it as much as Skyward, because it definitely is more interesting to me now that I've already read one of his novels and really enjoyed it. I'm just going to continue talking about the books that are already out, so then I get them out of the way and I can talk about all of the arcs that I have, because there are so many. So next is The Wicked King by Holly Black. I've had an arc of this for quite a few months, and I meant to pick it up and I just never ended up getting to it. I don't know why, but I actually sent it off to California with my sister so she we could read it, and then she brought it back for Christmas, and I was going to try and read it before it came out, but obviously that didn't happen. So this is the sequel to The Cruel Prince, and I feel like I haven't really heard that much about it. I know my sister said that it was a little bit slow in the beginning, and I did see someone else say that, so that to me, like, automatically when I hear something is slow, it makes me less inclined to pick it up. But I did enjoy The Cruel Prince, and I am eager to see what's going to happen in the sequel because the ending to the first book was crazy, so I will end up picking it up eventually. I just want to get into something more exciting and kind of get out of the slumpy mood that I've been in before I get to this. Next is The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. This is the latest novel from the author of A Star-Touched Queen, which I feel like I enjoyed, but I think it was like 3 out of 5 stars, but this one really intrigues me. So it's set in Paris in 1889, which I didn't really expect from this cover, to be honest, but it follows all of these different characters that are coming from different backgrounds, and they are going on a treasure hunt for this ancient artifact. So I don't think I've ever really read anything that follows a quest like that before, so I hope that I'll like this. And next I have an entire series here. So I have the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire, which I picked up on a whim. I knew that this book was about parallel universes, but that didn't really hook me. But then I found out that it's about like children who go to these fantasy worlds that you would read about, and like say they go to Wonderland, or I don't know, I can't think of any other examples right now, Hogwarts, but that's not really it, but you get what I mean. It's basically about these kids who come back to reality and they're talking about their crazy adventures, and their parents are like, what is happening to you? There's something wrong. So they go to the school for wayward children, but this series is really confusing, and I've actually read all of them. I ended up binging them, and I have such mixed feelings about it. So I will talk about it more in my wrap up because it's something that I want to delve into a little bit more, but it definitely confuses me. The bottom line is I feel like I have read chapters of a greater story. I don't feel like I've read 4 individual books, which I think is kind of the point, but I don't know if I like that being the point, but I just don't really know. It's very confusing to me. Like, I wanted to keep on reading, but I was also like very confused and felt like there were key pieces of information that I was missing. But the books that I actually got, since this is a book haul, so I got Beneath the Sugar Sky, and these are totally out of order, but Every Heart a Doorway, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and then the most recent one, which came out last week or something like that. I think it was a couple weeks ago, but that is In an Absent Dream. So confusing, enjoyable. I will talk about it more in a wrap up. So now getting to my giant pile of ARCs. These are in no particular order. They're just kind of chilling here, and I'm gonna do my best to get through these as quickly as possible so this video isn't ages long. Actually, I do have a few that will be out by the time you see this video. It's just when I'm filming it, they're not already out, so I'll try and start with those. So the first one is Circle of Shadows by Evelyn Skye. Evelyn Skye is the author of The Crown's Game, which I read the first book, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I haven't read the second book yet. I don't know why. I've had it for a little bit, but I just haven't picked it up yet. So now that she has a new book out, I really need to read The Crown's Fate, which is the sequel to The Crown's Game, and then I need to read this. But these are set in completely different worlds, following completely different topics. They are both fantasy though, but this is essentially about this world where there are a bunch of apprenticed warriors who are about to graduate, but they've never actually seen combat because their world has been at peace for so long. So each of these people have been chosen by the gods, and they have magic that they've been given to protect their kingdom, but they never really get the opportunity to actually do it. But things end up changing when they infiltrate this mysterious group of soldiers, hoping to finally see combat. So I don't really know what to expect from this story, but I know with her previous novel, I didn't really know either, and like I said, I really liked it, so I'm hoping this will also be a pleasant surprise for me. Next is The Cold is in Her Bones by Peter Nell Van Arsdale, which also came out on January 22nd, and it seems like a new version of a fairy tale, but it's not like a retelling or anything like that, it's just a newly written fairy tale. So this takes place in a world where demons are real and fear is what keeps you alive, which was definitely an intriguing hook to me, but the main character, Mila, has lived on her parents' farm, and it's a very lonely existence, so when a friend comes along named Iris and offers her a reprieve from that loneliness, she is so happy about it. But then she's exposed to the truth of why she is always on her family's farm and never allowed to go to the village, and that's because the village is cursed by this demon who will possess different girls, and that's obviously a bit of a problem. So when the demon decides that Iris is its next target, Mila is forced to leave everything she's ever known and try and face this monster in order to save her new friend. I actually started reading this, but I've been having a hard time having anything capture my attention, and it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm reading. I just have been all over the place in my mind, unfortunately. But this was very fascinating to me in the first little bit. Like, the prologue, I was like, oh, what is happening here? It definitely reads like a modern fairy tale, so I am very eager to finally get into this. I just need this never-ending reading slump to end. So I'm going to try and do the best that I can to go in order of release date for the rest of these books, but the next book is Courting Darkness by Robin Lefevre, which is coming out on February 5th. I actually don't know if I can read this because I didn't realize that it is a continuation of the His Fair Assassin, I believe it's what it's called, series, which I only read Grave Mercy, which is the first book, and I did really like it. I don't know why I didn't continue with the series. I think that it just didn't hook me enough, but this book sounded so cool because it's all about Death's daughters, and I just love that concept. That was all I needed to know to automatically be hooked, but I think that I do need to finish with the other series first, but I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait and see other people's reviews to see if this is something that I can actually pick up without having read the rest of the previous series that she wrote. Next is The Cerulean by Amie Ewing, which is also coming out on February 5th, and this sounds very, very weird. And I read the first book in the Jewel series that Amie Ewing wrote, and I didn't really like it, but I think it's because the concept was too weird for me, but this one seems like it's just the right amount of weird. So I'm going to do my best to describe it, but the synopsis was kind of confusing. But essentially it's about this girl and she is like attached. I don't know if it's her or if the city is attached. There's like this cord that attaches the underworld Earth sort of thing. I don't know if it's actually Earth, but to this city above the sky. And the main character is chosen to sacrifice herself to cut that cord and have that city of the sky, like it will save her own city. This is one where you should probably just read the synopsis on Goodreads because it's wild, and I'm excited to actually see how that concept will work because the world seems very vivid, and I'm just dying to read something that has an interesting and different, unique world. Let's just shove all the adjectives in there, but I think that this could give me what I'm craving. Next is The Anecdote by Shelley Sakier, and this is also coming out on February 5th, and it follows this world where magic is forbidden even if it has the opportunity to save someone's life. So the main character, Fee, has magical abilities, but she's always kept them hidden for safety reasons, and instead she has relied on the herbal remedies that have been erected in place of magic. But when her best friend, who also happens to be the crown prince, gets deathly ill and she knows that magic is the only thing that will save him, she's faced with this moral conundrum of whether to perform magic and save the kingdom by saving his life, or to let him die even though she knows that she has the ability to let him live on. This sounds like a very interesting and unique fantasy, which is exactly what I want right now because fantasy and I have been in a it's complicated relationship recently, so I'm hoping that it will deliver what I'm looking for. Next is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Pau Petro. This is coming out on February 12th, and what it says on the back is what very much intrigued me. So it says, "I had a sister once. I promised her the throne would not come between us, but it is a fact of life that one must kill or be killed, rule or be ruled. Sometimes the title of queen is given, sometimes it must be taken." So this is set in a world ruled by fierce warrior queens that has been built upon the backs of these phoenix riders, and the main character has dreamt of being a phoenix rider for so long, but their kingdom was doing great until these two sisters ended up sparking a war that tore the kingdom apart. So the main character is in the kingdom post-war and is trying to be a phoenix rider in this war-torn country. I just said war a lot, but this sounds like it could have a very interesting world. I'm intrigued by the figures of the phoenix riders. They sound very interesting, so I'm looking forward to reading it and learning a little bit more. Next is The Afterword by E.K. Johnston, which is coming out on February 19th, and it follows these lady knights and just this crew of lady knights, which sounds so amazing, and they are working to protect their kingdom and fight for freedom, and I just love the idea of this fierce group of females, and I can't wait to get to know more about them. Next is Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schult, which reminds me a little bit of Three Dark Crowns and a little bit of the Hunger Games too. There's like the division of the world that is very intriguing to me. I feel like it could be an interesting world to be in, but it follows the four queens who rule the different realms of this world. But I don't know if it actually is told from the perspective of the queens. I think it might be following characters that are lower than that. So there's a noble messenger and a pickpocket. I don't know if you get all the perspectives in there, but the noble messenger and the pickpocket are definitely key characters in the story, and there's this murder that ends up uniting them, so it sounds like it could be a bit of a mysterious fantasy, which I generally do enjoy. Next is To Best of the Boys by Mary Weber, which is coming out on March 5th, and it follows these girls who are basically defying the gender roles that have been set in their society. So there's this competition that that you could enter to win this scholarship to a prestigious university that has previously admitted only boys, but the two main characters of this book are dressing themselves up as boys in disguise to try and defeat all these boys in the competition through this labyrinth. So I'm kind of getting a little bit of Maze Runner vibes, but a kind of gender-bent version of it, and that sounds very intriguing. Next is Once and Future by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy, which is also coming out on March 5th, and this is a gender-bent retelling of King Arthur, but it's also set in space, which I didn't realize that at all. Actually, I don't know if it's set in space, but it's a sci-fi retelling of it, and that just sounds very interesting. So Ari is a descendant of King Arthur, and she ends up meeting with this teenage Merlin because Merlin has somehow aged down, and they're trying to break this curse that keeps King Arthur coming back. And it says on the back here, Once and Future is King Arthur as you've never imagined, a bold, fearless adventure about a diverse group of rebels fighting to save our galaxy from tyranny. I'm just very intrigued by this. I'm not that familiar with the original King Arthur story, so I think I'll have to read it and kind of get familiarized with it before I delve into this one, but I think it could be really fun. Next is Romanov by Nadine Brands, which is coming out on May 7th, and this is all about Anastasia Romanov, which is so exciting for me because I'm very fascinated by history, and particularly some historical figures more than others, and this is definitely a point in history that I don't know a ton about, but it's one that I would like to know more about. This is actually a magical take on the story, so people think that she has died, but she's actually smuggling magic in a suitcase on her way to exile in Siberia, so that just sounds very fascinating, and I'm so excited for this. Next is We Rule the Night by Claire Eliza Bartlett, which is coming out on April 2nd. So this is described as part Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo and part Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein, which are two of my favorite books, two of my favorite authors, so that automatically had me hooked. But it follows a factory worker who has been making war machines that was caught using illegal magic. And on the flip side, it follows a character that has disguised herself as a boy to fight on the front lines in this army. But both characters are offered a reprieve from their punishment if they are to join this woman's army that fights using magic. So I'm so excited. I love when books take characters from different sides of a spectrum and bring them together, and the idea of this army just sounds very interesting. I believe I don't know if it's just like a regular army, but yeah, flight. So it is like a flight unit. That just sounds awesome, and I'm excited. And the final book is The Storm Crow by Kaylin Josephson, and this is coming out on July 7th. I actually got this in the Fairy Loot, but it was a book that I had my eye on before. So it's all about this kingdom that has magical crows, but there was this kind of pillaging that happened, and since then all of the magical elemental crows have been taken from her people. So the her that I'm speaking about is the princess, and this follows her and her sister after they find a crow's egg hidden, and they decide to hatch it in secret and use it to try and regain all that their kingdom has lost. I don't know why crows come up so often in YA books, particularly fantasies, but I'm excited to see what this author's take on that is. So that is all for today's book haul. Thank you so much to Disney Book Group for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check out Undying and the Unearthed series by Amie Kaufman and Meagan Spooner. Like I said, I will have a link for it down below. But also a big thank you to all of the publishers and my work that sent me all of the arcs that I have in today's video. So that's going to be all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to click that subscribe button and then click that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'm definitely going to have to get used to saying that, but yeah, you can also follow me on all of my social media. All of my handles and links will be down below for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!